What's up, hockey fans? Hope you're enjoying your Saturday night. We've got some breaking news for you. The Chicago Blackhawks have traded defenseman Seth Jones to the Florida Panthers in exchange for goaltender Spencer Knight and a first-round pick in 2026, upending the balance of power in the Eastern Conference for the defending Stanley Cup champions. Let's break it all down with this breaking news, which is presented by Bet365. Open an account today with Bet365 and bet on a huge range of markets. Use promo code NATION, that's NATION. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. So where do we begin? Well, let's begin with Seth Jones, who was in the top 5 on our latest trade targets board on Friday, as the volume around Seth Jones and the Blackhawks continued to grow louder this week. For the first time on the back end of Four Nations, you heard Seth Jones begin to use his voice. On Monday, he said that he was interested in a trade to a contender. On Tuesday, he doubled down. Then after a loss, a disappointing loss, he was vocally critical of the team and the direction. All adding a couple layers to this, which materialized on Saturday with the Florida Panthers, because Jones had only given the Chicago Blackhawks a very small list of teams to deal with. I believe the Dallas Stars were on that list. I don't know how much interest they expressed. And I know, of course, the Florida Panthers were there. The Panthers, we'll get into them in a second. Their defense hadn't been the same since winning the Stanley Cup last year, and they get a big boost. But for the Blackhawks, this is a significant deal. Yes, they did retain some salary, $2.5 million for each of the next 5 seasons, but I'll explain in a second why that's immaterial. More importantly, getting Spencer Knight back, a goaltender who has first-round pedigree, 13th overall pick, that really kind of never fit in Florida. 2 different regimes, of course, but you sign Sergei Bobrovsky the same month that you then go out and draft Spencer Knight in the first round. They gave him a somewhat unprecedented contract, entering, off of his entry-level deal at $4.5 million a year. And now the Florida Panthers are without their goalie of the future, who ends up in Chicago, and they could check a huge organizational box. You know, you think about all the prospects on the way: Artem Levshunov, Sam Rinzel, obviously Connor Bedard doing his work up front. You see Frank Nazar and what he's contributing. But the Chicago Blackhawks didn't really have a goalie. Now with Spencer Knight, they have a goalie for the present and the future who perfectly fits their age scream and has the pedigree, of course, moving forward. I mentioned off the top of our video, though, that for the Panthers, this upends the balance of power in the Eastern Conference, and I truly believe that. I had the Panthers just outside or just on my circle of cup contenders, as we talked about on Friday's Daily Faceoff live show. And part of the reason for that is, yes, this team is experienced. They've got the big guns up front. They've got Bobrovsky, who has his own pedigree and certainly postseason magic of the last few years, but they had seemed a little bit tired and off this year. And the other thing is, they hadn't gone out and adequately replaced Brandon Montour and Oliver Ekman-Larsson. I fully expected that to wait for the Panthers. I thought they were going to be in a spot where finally they'd have a little bit of cap space moving forward this summer, and that they'd go out and address that need on defense in a significant way. They were able to preempt the market, give themselves another authentic crack at a Stanley Cup by bringing in Jones, whose game was depressed of late, but is still, I believe, a number 2 quality defenseman in this league. He can play 25 minutes a night. He actually averaged 25 minutes and 18 seconds over his tenure with the Hawks. So now you think about the pairs moving forward in Florida. They can throw Forsling and Jones, and those top 2 pairs might not need to come off the ice. You might not need a third pair, even though they've got guys like Nico Mikkola, and then, of course, Dmitry Kulikov. He can anchor that third pair just fine, given the limited workload that should be required. I think you're going to see a rejuvenated Seth Jones, a difference maker, a guy who comes in hugely motivated to impact a playoff team that has an authentic chance at a Stanley Cup. So this isn't a fence-sitting comment, but I believe that this trade works equally well for both teams. The Panthers get a defenseman now that can help them compete for a 3rd consecutive trip to the Stanley Cup final. but also for the next 5 years. Seth Jones is going to age well. He's such an effortless skater and gifted athlete that this is going to be no problem for him over these next 5 years. For the Hawks, who cares about retaining $2.5 million? They've got money to burn on their cap. And beyond that, with the way the cap's increasing moving forward, $2.5 million in 2 seasons from now will be less than 2% on the salary cap. So that's an immaterial change. And then the Hawks get their goalie of the future and a first-round pick. Why is that first-round pick important? It's a 2026 first-round pick that could slide to 2027 if the Panthers decide to trade that 2026 pick. It's a conditional pick involved in another deal. So if they don't have it, it becomes 2027. It's important because now that extra draft capital allows the Hawks to be super aggressive, whether it's in an offer sheet of a restricted free agent this summer. They've got all their picks. They can decide to really go out and dangle that or to use it as part of a package. I don't think they need additional first-round prospects in their system, and the Florida pick theoretically should be pretty late no matter when it is. The Hawks get real value in return for a player who had turned up the volume for them this week, and they held firm. Despite the limited list of teams that Jones would have went to, they, instead of saying, hey, we'll just dump him and get rid of him and take this off of our plate, they said, you know what, we need to go out and get a good deal. And that's what they did in moving on from Seth Jones. One other little small caveat to watch moving forward. What happens with the Florida Panthers cap? It would seem to suggest that trading Knight and taking on Seth Jones, that the Panthers are now over the cap and that they might be then having to turn to LTIR with Matthew Tkachuk and his deal. Does that mean the Panthers still have some more work left to do between now and Friday's 3 p.m. Eastern NHL trade deadline? Stay tuned. Keep it locked on dailyfaceoff.com. We'll have all the latest news, information, and analysis. This has been a breaking news update presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365.
What's up, hockey fans? If you like that video, do not forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the Daily Faceoff YouTube because we have tons of great content, from exclusive interviews on The Sheet with Jeff Merrick to instant analysis and breaking news with our Daily Faceoff insider, Frank Seravalli, on Daily Faceoff Live, to your go-to morning duo, Johnny Lazarus and Colby Cohen on Morning Cup of Hockey. Plenty of great content, wall-to-wall, team-to-team, all the way across the entire league. You won't miss it if you subscribe.